Players talked about Jalen standing up after the game and having a message for the team. What's that mean for a guy who's gone through things like 2022, where the close loss? He's gone through a lot of things, and he was there to kind of just share his perspective with this team.
Yeah, I really think it's what's made this team special from January, right? And I think we talked about this early in the season. It's like the biggest gift we have is our experiences. And, I think one of the things that's allowed this team to just continue to grow, and, as painful as not getting a win Saturday was, there was still great growth. And there were some things that we really needed to get better at that we made a positive way. And I feel like that's the one thing I really appreciate about this team is whether the result at the end of the game has been what we wanted, the mentality to come back, understand what just happened, and demand to grow forward has been at the utmost. And, I think anytime there's adversity, it's better to hear from somebody else rather than always my voice. And, Jalen certainly has that right and did a great job of just kind of, I think, bringing the team together, bringing a focal point to the message, and then get ourselves ready to come in on Sunday and move forward. And I thought our kids did a great job of that.
In terms of the running game, we saw Abu really have a great second half, and we've seen Carson flash at times. Jalen had a couple games. Does the rotation kind of stay the same, and is Carson still battling a little bit an injury? So you got to kind of pick your spots with him?
Yeah, I think that was probably the thing that if you said what was disappointing a little bit coming out of a bye is you thought he might be a little bit farther along, and that's not anything to do with Carson because he's straining to get himself back. But I think the positive for us is Sunday he felt better than he had over the last couple weeks. So maybe we can be a little bit even more progressive of where we are and where he needs to be for us to be our best. But I think turning that into a positive, what happened with Abu in the second half is maybe the best complete tailback I've seen Abu play in his career here. And I think that part's really exciting because I think we all know what his ability is and what he brings to our football team. And I think you see a guy that kind of gained some great confidence needed moving forward. And I think we're all excited about that. And you're right, that room's, when one guy's gone down, the other guy seems to be able to step in and do great things. And I know I continue to say great things about Coach Roll, but I think he's had a great impact on that room, and that room continues to grow forward. So, hopefully we get the best of Carson Hansen coming out this Saturday, and hopefully even what happened on Saturday allows Abu to be his best now for us down the stretch.
What are your thoughts just on how top-heavy your receptions are, between Jaden and Jalen?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the philosophy of us, players, formations, plays. And, I think that we're always going to try to find ways to emphasize our best playmakers in some critical moments. And so, I think probably what's hidden in those are some of the big plays by other people across the way, and obviously with Ben being down, last week, I think it probably put so much more emphasis on some of those guys. But, I think the big thing for us is, boy, I'd be really kicking myself if you left a game and you say, man, you didn't give your playmakers the best opportunity to have success in the football game. And obviously those two guys are huge playmakers. And I think the thing about us is probably, that distribution of throwing the football. I think we're not throwing the ball maybe as much as we have in the past because, I think we're a little bit more balanced than we have been. So I think sometimes that can be a little bit skewed as well. But, I think those two guys are a huge piece of who we are.
With, I guess, the touchdown that Carson had at the end of the game, does that at least illustrate there is a spot for a third guy to make a big difference, whether it's him, especially without Ben?
Yeah, I think for sure. I think that, there's always going to be that. And I think in a passing game, when you got three guys that are a real challenge to cover, then I think it eliminates some of the double teams. It eliminates, especially in some, that was a third down play, especially in some situational football where you can get bracket coverage. I think that those things are huge. And, man, I think Carson's really starting to step into a role. I hate it for Gabe, but, man, Gabe, great play on the football. I thought he was really having a great game, and he's a big target. Tyler Moore's a big target. Obviously, we've seen other guys step in and make some big plays for this football team in reception. So I don't feel like we're lacking those players, but I think these are great opportunities for guys to step up and make plays. And again, we were fortunate that happened on Saturday. Like I said, on Saturday. The unfortunate part of the story is you're not telling the Carson Brown story as probably as great as you should, because man, what a great play and a great moment. But obviously when you lose the game, that story kind of goes by the wayside. But I don't think it went by the wayside in our coaching staff, and certainly with our players. I think everybody really proud of what that guy did in a critical moment again for us.
Matt, we just listened to Coach Haycock talk about when you guys defer, the expectation is that they get off the field and get a stop right away to start the game.
Yeah.
This is now 4 straight games with a touchdown on that first drive. Does that strike you as odd in some way? Because for as statistically and as generally good as your defense has been, that strikes me as a little bit odd.
Yeah, and again, I think, it's funny, when I was playing at Mount Union in 21, we won a national championship in 5 straight games in the playoffs, and then in the national championship game we gave up a touchdown in the first drive of this. So I was telling our staff about this, like I remember this like yesterday. So maybe it's me, it must be my mojo. Now we won the national championship, so that was positive. But I sometimes I think it just, a little bit of it is we know who we are, our base defense, and, some people scheme us up pretty well early in the game. We have to make some adjustments. I think, Coach has done a phenomenal job of making great adjustments along the way, and, some guys made some plays. I think if you look at what's a little bit of it is, man, you give credit and tip your hat to some guys that, man, we get picked on the one play, Coop gets picked, and, 9 out of 10 times he gets over top of it and makes the play on that ball, and we just didn't do that as well as we needed to. So, I think, yes, that's the expectation. We all, boy, you want to start fast, you want to do that. But I think the reality of it is, I think what's most impressive is maybe it hasn't gone well right away, and our kids' ability to hang in there, reverse the tide, and give ourselves the best chance. Do we need to do better, and do we want to do better? Do we want to get off to a great start? Man, I think Coach Haycock would tell you that. I would tell you that. Our kids would tell you that. And so we got to continue to pound away at it, because I think those things are really important for us as we continue to move forward. But I am proud of our ability to respond, and I think that is football a little bit as well.
Hey, Coach, can we get an injury update?
Yeah, I think we're pretty much in the same place we were, honestly, last week. I think Zach Lovett back out of practice today, really positive. Ben Bramer back out of practice today. So, I think those guys are creeping closer to being back, ready to play football. I thought Kilberzina looked solid. He played a little bit of limited role Saturday, and hopefully, again, I think kind of like Carson Hansen, you hope he's progressing a lot better than, maybe where he was last week, and I think he certainly has the capability for that to happen. And then I think everybody else, we're kind of in the same place we've been. If there's anybody else you got questions on, let me know. Linebackers, I think pretty much in the same place we've been.
Obviously, Coach, back-to-back weeks playing these star caliber running backs, R.J. Harvey and Taj Brooks, and now heading to Kansas City with a guy like Devin Neal, and especially with a dynamic quarterback like Jalen Daniels. What have you kind of seen from this Kansas offense heading into Saturday?
Yeah, I just, this team probably, one of the most experienced teams in our conference coming back, just across the board. I mean, you look at their offensive productions. I mean, superstar players at the wide receiver position, all 3 of those players, man, I feel like we've played against them now for 5 or 6 years. And, I mean, they're really talented, really good football players. Obviously, the backfield, dynamic. I feel like, again, another week of talking about another tailback that you got a lot of respect for. He's tough, he's physical. Man, he really knows how to express the football. And then at the quarterback position, a guy that's dangerous, and a guy that's won a lot of football games there, a guy that can do it with his arm. He's got an elite arm talent, and yet he's also got this unique ability that, man, he can really make you pay in the running game. He forces you to defend the football field both horizontally and vertically. Man, probably as good as anybody in college football, just because of his athleticism and his arm talent. So it's a real challenge. It's a team that has got great ability and certainly has proven that they can win big football games. It'll be a great challenge for us.
Matt, sometimes in sports you see the one loss can snowball and lead into more losses. What do you feel is crucial in preventing that from happening with this team?
Yeah, I think all of it comes back to no different, whether you win or you lose, is what's your mentality today, and what's your mentality tomorrow, and what becomes your mentality when we get to Saturday at 2:30. And, I think the sport of football, as we're all seeing, you're witnessing the mentality of 18 to 22-year-olds and then the people that are leading those 18 and 22-year-olds. And, I think if you have a mentality of purpose and precision, then usually great things happen. And great thing for us is we've got great kids who have proven and they have a great mentality to grow and get better. Probably our biggest challenge is the detail that we need to have to be our best team and most complete team for 60 minutes. And I feel like, man, we're fighting, scratching, and clawing to become that team. And man, been really close. Even some moments on Saturday, man, there was some really good football, and you just couldn't sustain it enough to finish the job. And so, great lesson learned and a great opportunity to grow forward. But humility, curiosity, and then a mentality to demand to grow forward. And hopefully, we've got those kind of people and that kind of team in our walls.
Another question about injuries. Dylan Barrett, I don't think has played since the game at West Virginia. What is his status? Because I don't think you've commented on
Dylan's
that.
really close. He was actually out on the practice field today. I think he's another guy that you would say is really questionable for Saturday. It's an ankle injury at West Virginia. Has worked really, really hard to kind of get himself back. Looked good today. How does he look by the end of the week? We'll see. But I do think he's a huge piece to our football team coming back.
And then to Abu, I don't think he's maybe necessarily had the season that he hoped for. How have you seen him kind of battle some of those struggles this season?
Yeah, I think that's what I love about Abu is, man, it's always been about the team. And, I think for Abu, we put a lot of expectations on one game in one way, shape, or form, and sometimes that's hard. I think you saw great flashes of Abu, and Abu is so young at his position, and again, you're talking about a guy that didn't really play tailback until his senior year of high school, and obviously did a really good job of that, but was always on the defensive side of the ball. And man, we even recruited him. It tells you how smart we are as a corner, right? So, the reality of it is, he's a young football player at his position, and he's got such an unbelievable spirit about who he is and what he is and kind of teammate he is that, him and Carson are roommates. Those two guys go everywhere together. And so, I think it's been really fun to watch those two almost bring each other up even when they've had some off days and, fight through injury, going through a rough patch. I think those two, they're almost the story a little bit. They're great teammates that have great care for each other, and I think they've supported each other through it.
I know you can't mention names, but you guys are experiencing a lot of momentum on the recruiting trail with a 7-1 record and seeing a lot of commitments. Have you seen your record maybe translate to prospects in various classes just being more receptive to the message that you're sending to them?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that recruiting's so goofy, right? And you don't even know, is it going well, is it not going well? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you find out on Saturdays, in the fall if it's going well. And, I think my biggest thing has always been about recruit the right people and let any of those statistics out there that measure recruiting kind of measure itself. But, man, we got to make sure we're finding the right humans that fit our culture and our football program. And I do think when you have success, though, you continue to be able to tell a story of, who you really are and what you're really about. And obviously, both the development piece of it and the success on the field, I think those things certainly do matter. We'd be crazy to not say that winning doesn't have success of like, hey, what we say we're about can allow us to be successful in a sport that we're playing. So, I think it's a great question, but I think that's really how we try to focus on it.
What are the things in practice you're looking for from the running backs to help decide how to divvy up those snaps? And do you like to let those guys, each of those running backs, know before the game kind of maybe what you're expecting, at least initially, their role to look like?
Yeah, I think sometimes we do before the game. I think that's a great point. I think what you're evaluating is the standard of practice, how you execute the game plan, how you execute, what's being asked of you. That's what Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is about. And again, to execute on a Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday and, have the fundamental and detail that you need to have to get on the field, you have to study really well to prepare yourself for those opportunities because, it's no position is ever the same each week. You go in, you have a different game plan and you have different challenges that you're going to be asked to execute. And then you evaluate that videotape. We grade it just like we would a game film on Saturday. And then, I think what we try to do on Saturday for all of our kids is be as honest as, hey, this is how we see this game starting. That doesn't mean that's where it's going to go. But we try to give our kids at least clarity on how things will start and then, make sure they're ready for their moment when their number gets called.
Playing at Arrowhead Stadium, can you talk about the magnitude of that and what you envision on Saturday?
Oh man, I'm a Browns fan, So it'd be, believe me, we got a lot of respect for the Chiefs. Man, Coach Kareem Hunt, love him to death. Obviously, think the Travis Kelce thing's really cool. But at the end of the day, I think the game is who we're playing, the opportunity, the challenge, and those are things we look at. But I think anytime you play at a different place, it's always unique in college football. Oh, he must be fired up about that. Yeah. It's, Coach he's got wisdom. We'll have to ask him about it. I think, like I said, I just think uniqueness. Obviously, that place has got great tradition, and a team that's having the success that they're having. I think that's really cool. Jalen Noel, I know, is really fired up, so I know he's super juiced about that. But I think anytime you go somewhere different, that's pretty neat.
When we talk about resiliency, is that universal in terms of we've seen this team respond to with resilience in a football game?
Yeah.
We haven't seen them after a loss because it hasn't happened. Are those two different things, or are they the same thing?
Yeah, I think they're different, but I would hope that the resiliency, and I know we talked about the law of progression a little bit earlier in the year of like, man, you're gonna come into those blips, you're gonna have a setback, and if you're humble enough to understand the setback and then courageous enough to make the response that needs to be responded, and so you can get right back on the law of progression, then I think you have a chance to have great success. And I think this team showed the ability, even Saturday, showed the ability to do that. Didn't do it long enough, and we made too many mistakes to be able to get the win in the football game. But I don't think there was a lack of resiliency and toughness by our kids. And so I think that you can live with, because that's ultimately what we're teaching 18 to 22-year-olds. But I think at the end of the day, you have to understand why the game didn't get won and how we have to strain to make those corrections. And I think we're going to find out, can one loss not lead to two? And, can you have the ability to, let's also not realize, you're playing a really good opponent that's really talented, and you got a good football team that you got to play. So it's not just on you. This team's going to give you everything they got, and a team you got a lot of respect for, and talent you got a lot of respect for. So, I think you got to be ready to play and learn and grow. But what a great opportunity for us to showcase, are we who we would like to be, and certainly the team that we believe we've got the ability to become.
Coach, after a few days of looking at film from Saturday, what led to kind of some of the miscommunications and kind of rare mistakes from this team, and what is the team doing this week to get through that adversity?
Well, I think we would all say that's coaching, right? I think we have to find ways to just navigate that. We've been so incredible in terms of our ability to kind of eliminate some of those pre-snap errors that we've had. And, for whatever reason, those snuck up a little bit Saturday, and that's a fundamental. And when you talk about a fundamental, the execution of that, obviously it's on the playing and the coaching, but it starts with coaching. And we have to do a great job of making sure whatever complexity caused, a pre-snap foul, we got to do a great job as coaches is trying to navigate that, correct it, and then move forward and get ourselves back to, the execution that we expect from our group.
All right, Coach, that's it.
All right, thank you.